It's Saturday. It's 9 o'clock in the morning. It's time for the Monster Magic Saturday Show. Let's do this.
Wake up, it's a beautiful morning. Feel the sun shining for your eyes.
Woo! Well, hey, good morning, people. It's been quite a quiet week for releases in the Magic world. It seems not very much coming in from Murphy's, nothing real new from Penguin, but Ellusionist have been hard at work, and I've had an Ellusionist delivery, and so it's going to be quite an Ellusionist heavy show. So sit back and enjoy. And first up from the Ellusionist stable is Heartbeat. Yes, Heartbeat by Juan Colas. Juan Colas looks like one very cool dude. And this is a really, really cool trick. It's an old principle. So there are probably a lot of people going, oh, it's just that old thing from Tarbell in the 50s, which essentially it is. So if you go to Tarbell Volume 4, I think it is, there's a trick called the wrapping pencil or the tapping pencil. I think it's by Ralph Reed. Probably should have done a bit more research on that. If that's my memory serves me correctly. And with that, you sort of put the pencil on the table or on top of your card box, and it makes a tapping noise. What Juan has done, apparently got shown, Juan got shown that at FISM by Paul Daniels. What Juan has done is taken that and made it into a heartbeat. So the presentation is what you're really buying here. Let me make that clear. And the presentation is brilliant. You get your spectator to hold out their finger. You put the pencil on top of the finger, and one hand on your heart. They put one hand on their heart, and you can hear each other's heartbeats, as it were, or you can feel the heartbeat on their finger. Really, really good. A really great way of having this emotional connection with your spectator. And that's something that Juan and indeed Christian Grace on the tutorial talk about, is how to build up that connection, make it powerful. Juan also talks about when to perform this, when to create this moment, because that's really what you're doing. You're creating something really, really special here. And it elevates it from just being a standard magic trick. And they also talk about things like, the spectator's very likely going to want to give you a hug and things like that, and how to embrace all of these things. The packaging is over the top, but that's great because you want to keep this safe. And because essentially it's a gimmickless routine, but you do need the right type of pencil. So it is lovely that they have included the right type of pencil. And this is what you get. It's very straightforward. I mean, it's a pencil, but it's exactly the right kind of pencil. So you're good to go right out of the box, which, you might go, I don't need the pencil sent to me. It's all paraphernalia for the sake of it. You have to source this. I don't think I could find one of these pencils locally, the right pencil locally. I'd probably be searching online, and then I'd have to wait a few days. So I'm really pleased, actually, that they've included the pencil. They've got a nail file as well, and a little powder for if you've got dry hands. And it comes nicely in a tin, plus the instructions. And the instructions are really, really clear. The method is simple. You'll pick it up quite quickly, pretty certain. And but what is really nice is, like I say, is the teaching. It's how Juan talks about building the connection, making this feel special, and also little gimmick, little bit of choreography as well to hide the secret, and he sort of teaches how to practice it. And what goes wrong? It's great. I mean, there's not that much you can really say about it. If you want to get away from cards and not desperately mentalism, it's something a little different. It's really, really an unusual sort of thing to perform on someone, and it does make that connection with the person if you do it properly, and if you do it if you use Juan's presentation. So I mean, I think it's just a super little product. It is $28.99. Obviously most of that has gone on the packaging and providing that and so on. So but even if you ignored all this, the routine and the tips that you get from the tutorial are well worth the $28.99. I think it's easy to do. Anyone can really do it with a bit of practice, and you can practice this, you know, on the fly at your desk at work. If you've got an office job, you know, it's great. Really good. Really good. Probably my trick of the week, I would say, if I was ever going to do a trick of the week, which I've just done. So yeah, Heartbeat by Juan Colas. And next up in the hot seat is Scribe by Christian Grace. Now, before I go any further, I have met Christian a few times. He is an acquaintance, and you know, we exchanged the odd message here and there and now. So, trying to be completely honest with you. So, and I like the way Christian thinks, and he doesn't put out stuff willy-nilly. He really puts out things that he believes have great value to the magic world, and Scribe is another one of those. What you get inside the tin is a nail writing gimmick. It's a band style nail writing gimmick, and it's a little special in order to work well with the Scribe, the actual, what I would call the Scribe gimmick, although together, you know, it's a package essentially. It is a pencil lead band writer, so you're going to be writing in pencil rather than one of those sort of greased china marker styles that are meant to represent a Sharpie pen. So it's probably more for close up than stage. You get the Scribe gimmick, and you also get some spares for the band writer, the lead, and so on, which is really, really useful and a nice thought. Don't know why the tin's quite so big, but there you go. And what Scribe enables you to do really is to clean up your nail writing. If you've ever tried it, especially with just a small billet, it tends to look really, really scratchy, as if you've sort of tried to write it on a roller coaster, basically. And the reason for that, I feel, is because you've got this opposable thumb thing going on. You're trying to write it in one hand, but you're trying to hold something in one hand as well. So normally when you hold something, obviously you use your thumb. So like that. But if you want to write something, if you want to go from one character to another, that happens. Now, I used to get around this by having a sort of disappearing finger, and I would hold the pad like so, and I'd write like that. Christian has gone a step further and created a special gimmick that means you don't need a pad. You can just have the one piece of paper, and that makes it really nice and clean, and also much more deceptive in my mind. So just the one billet, your one business card that you put in your hand, and you can write freely. You can remove your thumb away from the paper very nicely, so you get a much more realistic writing than without Scribe. It holds it steady, it holds it firm. It's really quite clever. It's a very simple gimmick. You alter it to fit your hand so that it's invisible and it's comfortable. And it works really well. The tutorial isn't terribly long. It is by Christian, and he shows you a performance and he teaches you a routine.
Before we roll, don't try and pencil read. I'm going to write a two-digit number. Okay. Don't try and get ahead of the game. Okay, good. All right, so I want you to get a two-digit number in mind. If I can predict this number, yep, then I get to keep my £20 out. If I don't, you get to keep it. So right. Cool. 1 in 100. Here we go. Yeah. Be honest with me. You've got a two-digit number in mind. Yeah. You're thinking of the number. The first digit's a 2, isn't it? No. Are you being serious? Yeah. What's the first digit? 6. And what's the second digit? Well, why would I tell you that? No, because I've already got it wrong, apparently. Okay. All right, 8. 68. Well, actually, I didn't say I'd read your mind. I said I'd predict ahead of time. Because I told you I wrote something down before we started. Right, yeah. Have a look. See if I'm close. Shut up. Was it 68, right? God. Seriously? Yeah, seriously. Look, get to keep that, thank God.
But there are a myriad of routines that require nail writing, and this gimmick is perfect for most of them. Like I say, you just need the one business card in your hand, and you can get a nice, clean piece of writing. It's very, you know, you could put a bit of practice. What you find normally with nail writing, like I say, it's going from one letter to or one number to another that causes this sort of scratch mark that makes it look rather unnatural. With this, you can get nice, clearly defined individual numbers or letters or characters even. The routine that Christian teaches is really nice. It's a great little thing to do on the fly, even if you've got this on you. Doesn't take up much pocket space. It all fits neatly together, so it's very easy to get into. And it's taught really well. It's taught really well. There's not much more I can say about this either. It's $28.99. It hides in plain sight. It does exactly what it's meant to do. If you are doing any nail writing and you've struggled with it, Scribe will help. It's a great little thing. Really, really, really simple, really clever, which is sort of Christian's way of thinking. It's great. It's great. It's only $28.99. Again, quite a lot on the packaging, but it is good value for the routine and for the ability to be able to nail write cleanly at last. And now we've got the big trick of the week. Yes, Ditto, once again by Ellusionist, and this is their mechanical version of Colour Match. I've been getting a bit wound up recently by people calling it an analog version of Colour Match, which doesn't mean without electronics, people. You have analog electronics. This is a mechanical version, and it's a Colour Match that instead of being 300, 600 pounds, it's only 80 pounds, and it's got no electronics to fail on you, which are all big pluses. The real thing about this that I have to say is that it is deeply flawed. It is based on Al-Quran's idea. Al-Quran was a great mentalist, no doubt about it. But it has a lot of flaws, unfortunately. Here's the pot. Now, the pot is terrific. This is essentially the gimmick that you're looking at now, and it does look very much like one of those pots, pen pots that I have seen in Ryman's and stationers, and you'll see it on eBay quite a lot. What is very nice part of the design is that this base holds the rest of the gimmicks. It's this magnetic thing that comes off, and that holds everything that you need to perform it, bar the pens, of course. Yeah, it looks very innocent, doesn't it? From this angle. If you look down, it doesn't look quite so innocent. In fact, it looks very odd, which is just one of the problems with it. But let me put some pens in. So this is what it looks like when it's fully loaded. Again, nice and innocent. The pens perhaps suspiciously neatly arranged. You can sort of try and ruffle them up, but they don't move all that freely. And the main reason people are going to be buying this, and what it says on the box, it actually says Colour Match on the box, and the first routine that Peter Turner teaches in his amazing tutorial, actually, Peter Turner gives away some really clever tips, both for Colour Match and all of the alternative routines that I'll come to in a minute. So the first thing he teaches is the Colour Match, and this is not very good for Colour Match. It just isn't. It just isn't. There's a myriad of problems which I shall try to remember. One thing that people were worried about was the noise. If you watch the trailer for it, it shows exactly how it works, and people were thinking it's going to be noisy. There really isn't any noise at all. Even in a very quiet room, you won't hear the mechanics, shall we say. I don't want to say too much, although the trailer does give away exactly how it works. So that's not a problem at all. The problem lies really with the method and the construction of the pot and the routine and the choreography and everything else. Now, you might really quite like to see perhaps Pete Turner or someone else perform this to see exactly how it works and how it is done, but there is no live performance of this anywhere. And there's a good reason, because I don't think Peter Turner has ever really performed this in a proper working environment. I don't think anyone has. I don't think anyone has tried this on a layperson. I was going to film myself doing it last night, but unfortunately logistics stopped my cameraman from getting here. And I say cameraman, my friend who was going to hold the phone, which is a shame because, well, it's not a shame because I really didn't want to do it. So the real flaw is that you need to get a peak. Now I'll come to getting the peak and how big the peak is and everything else in a minute, and the issues there are with that. But the timing of the peak is the big problem. So let me just explain what the colour match routine is in general. I'd love to show you, but there's no performance of it, is there? Essentially, you have a drawing, an outline drawing, somebody you get in a colouring book. It's usually of a person wearing some clothes, because that helps with, sometimes the reveal is that you're wearing exactly what they've coloured in. Sometimes it's just an open prediction. You might have it in a sealed envelope on view the whole time. It's up to you. And the idea is that you turn your back and the person picks random colours from the pot or the table, picks up a random colour, and they colour in items of the clothing or parts of the picture in whatever colour they've chosen at random. You turn around and it matches your prediction. So they've done the hair in green, they've done the trousers in yellow, and that matches either what you're wearing or what you've got in your prediction. And the electronic version, you have your back turned the entire time. With this version, you can't have your back turned the entire time, and that causes a lot of issues because you don't really want to see what they've already coloured in and what colour they've used, because that weakens the performance somewhat. Also, you need to get this peak after they've removed the pen. Now, obviously, if I remove the pen and then turn around, I know which one I can see which one they've chosen. So you need to have this pen put back. And then you need to turn around, get your peak, and then they need to take the pen out again. And there's really no good justification for that. Pete's explanation is to say, take out the pen, show the audience which colour you're going to take, put it back in the pot. Then he turns around, gets his peak. You then turn around away from the audience again and go, now take out that pen and colour in whatever. It just doesn't make any sense to put this pen back. It doesn't make any sense to show the audience and then put it back so you can turn around. It's nonsense. They're going to see what colour you've picked up anyway, aren't they? They don't need to show it to them, put it back and take it out again. Also, with that turning around, you don't want to see the picture. You're going to have to. So this is basically meant to be a stage effect. I think it probably is going to be. I don't know if you're going to be better off doing it close up. The other issue is putting this pen back because of the inside of the pot is really difficult. It looks weird unless you get it in the right place, which is very hard without actually looking. You're in trouble. No spectator is going to think that's a real pot. That is unnatural, and you don't want anyone to look down inside it. So you've got the table's going to have to be a decent height, and when that pen goes back, there's a force of nature raging through you to get that pen the same height and to sit properly in the lid, because that stops before you think the bottom of the pot is. And that's a really weird feeling. You want to get that, and then you're going to look down inside, and then your spectator is going to see exactly how this works, and then you're doomed. Not only that, you've got to do that 5 times. So 5 times they've got to take a pen, put it back. You've got to turn around, keep turning around, keep glimpsing your peak. You want to get rid of the black pen as well, because you can't pick the black pen. It's even in good light, you can't tell whether the black pen's been chosen or not. So that's an issue with the routine. So you've got to stop them from looking inside the pot as well, even if there wasn't the slot issue. And with that, I mean, I don't know how you'd have this on stage so that they wouldn't look down. It's going to have to be some sort of distance away from the edge of the table. and reasonably high that they can't see inside the pot. If you're doing it close up, you can sort of get a sense. You could put this nearer to you, so they'd have to invade your personal space to peer in, and especially if they were sitting down, you've got more control over the height. But like I say, with doing it close up isn't really what it's designed for. And also, you've still got this whole issue of getting the pen in the pot and turning around loads of times. And then there's getting the peak. So you've got to grasp the peak, and it's fine if you're in a well-lit room. You can see the peak just fine. There's an issue with the blue. Sometimes it's quite hard to see. Like I say, get rid of the black because you can't see that at all. The red and the orange, you're gonna have to try and distinguish that. My eyesight isn't the best. I'll tell you that for nothing. But in a good, well-lit room, you're fine. But the classic parlor venue or stage venue, that is not the lighting you have. The lights are always dimmed. In fact, I tried this in the Magic Circle club room, and the lighting there, even though that was sort of pub lighting, I suppose, made it very hard to see. And also, if you're on stage, essentially you want space between you and what's going on. Do you see what I mean? You want to fill the stage. With this, you're going to have to be very close to the person drawing the picture, because unless they're going to walk halfway across the stage to the pot and back again, you've got to be in quite close proximity. Like I say, you've got to keep looking down at the pot. And a peak, for me, should be that. It's a peak. It's a little glimpse. It's over in a second, and you should never have to go back for a second peak. If you go back to the second peak, you've just given the game away. Unfortunately, with this, you've got to keep going back for 5 peaks. But the problem is getting that peak without looking suspicious, without having to stare too long, isn't easy. In most light, you're gonna have to have really good lighting on stage. You're gonna have to be in complete control of your lighting environment. Which now, one way round the awkwardness of putting the pens back would be to have 5 people come up on stage. You have the one drawing, you have 5 people come up on stage. They each take a pen, and you know the order that the pen have been chosen, so you know who's got what colour, and then you can ask them to colour in. Each person to colour in their specific part of the picture to match your prediction. That will work. The problem is you're going to have to keep staring back at this pot somehow. So you're going to have to sort of have them come out, hold a picture. You're even going to, I wonder if you could get away with just holding the pot when you've turned your back. But you're going to have to put the pot down somewhere where in your line of sight, so you can naturally be glimpsing it throughout, looking at and so on, without arousing suspicion. And that is just, for me, still not viable. Ideally, if you're doing something like this on stage, you want to go to the front of the stage, perhaps to one side, so you're still facing the audience, addressing the audience whilst they're colouring something in. You can still be chatting and engaging with the audience. With this, you've got to be looking down. You've got to have the pot at some point in your line of sight, so you can't do that. One way of doing colour match I thought of, which isn't mentioned on the tutorial, would be to do it like this. Just to have swap the lids on the pens so that they are all black lids, so that you can't tell which colour they are. And that way you don't necessarily need to have the pen replaced, which is great. Works a treat. You've still got to glance down at the pot before they've started drawing those. So you can't turn around and say, pick a pen and colour in the tie. They've got to pick a pen. You've got to turn around, perhaps ask them a question, glance down at the pot in an unsuspicious manner, turn away, and then ask them to colour in the correct thing. So you're still turning around far too often, but you don't have to have the pen replaced what I don't understand also about the peak is why they've made it so small, because the actual aperture that you're peeking through is quite big. There's no reason why what you're glimpsing couldn't be just that little bit bigger. As it is, they're a nightmare. I have spent quite a lot of time searching over my rug to find one that I've dropped. But there you go. I think that might have helped. And also, with discussions of people at the Magic Circle, we've come up with ideas of just how to make the inside look more innocent as well. So I just feel this just hasn't been worked and developed fully. That is the big problem. This is another item that's been rushed to market. Hence, there's no performance. Hence, the choreography doesn't work. There's just so many faults that need to be ironed out that just haven't been mentioned yet by anybody. Is really weird. I'm not the only person to notice it, because when I took it to the Magic Circle, everyone struggled to see how this was going to play well. On your tutorial, Peter Turner runs through some other routines you can do with it. The first one he teaches is Sneak Thief. Now, Sneak Thief is a great routine. It is where you have, say, 3 billets or 5 billets. It doesn't really matter. Pete suggested 3. People write something down on it or draw a picture. They get mixed up. They get back to you, and you can read the person and say who has written or drawn which picture. That you can use this for that. Why you would, I have absolutely no idea. Peter justifies it by saying you don't need to carry around special billets or any preparation of the billets at all, but you've got to carry around this bloody pot and these pens and everything else, which, if you're doing Sneak Thief, you can set it up on the fly. You don't need special billets. Yes, you do something to them, but that can be done instantly, impromptu. It's not an issue at all. You still need billets. It just doesn't make any sense to use to do Sneak Thief with this. And also, having people write stuff in different colours makes it slightly weaker than having them do it all in the same colour pen. It's just nonsense. That really is nonsense. But what I will say is that Pete's teaching of Sneak Thief is terrific. You'll pick up lots of tips on how to improve the power and your performance of Sneak Thief from this tutorial. In that way, Pete really does show his class as a mentalist in his way of thinking, and that made the tutorial really interesting. Another routine Pete suggests is Kurasuke or Black Moon. Kurasuke, I think, was the Max Maven routine, or translates as Black Moon. And the idea is you'll say that one of these pens, you're going to divine which person has got one of these pens. So Pete suggests that the red pen is going to be, the hot pen, as it were. 5 people each pick a pen, and you can find out which one has the red pen. I think Max Maven does it with all black balls and 1 white ball, and that makes more sense somehow to do it that way, because you won't want to do it with different coloured pens, would you? So what you really want is to have, like I say, have them all black apart from one that's red, and do it that way. It's just a weird one to do with pens. Why would you do it with pens? Why would you do it with this pot? It's just better to do it with something smaller that someone can hold in your hand. It's an idea. It's an idea. It does work. It's just not great. Not worth buying it for. Pete then goes on to mention Voice Print by Ned Rutledge, which is a routine where someone writes something down of importance, usually someone's name, but it could be an object or anything like that, on a list of 1 to 6. And in this case, obviously, they do it in different colours, and you'd know which one is the important item on the list as opposed to the unimportant items. It's an okay routine, but there are, I wouldn't buy that for that routine either. Visa Cabaret is a great trick. I think originally brought out by Stephen Tucker, in which you have a wallet that's got some 3 credit cards in, and you ask someone to put a credit card in each of their pockets, and you can divine which credit card is in which pocket. Peter suggests, quite rightly, that you can do that with these pens, and you will know, because you know the order that the pens have been taken. You know which pocket which pen is in. It's an idea, but that's more, you know, it's a close-up trick, and you've got to carry this pot around with you to do that close-up trick. Well, I'll say, so although this isn't a close-up trick, I have got the reset down to actually pretty fast. You can reset this. It's a bit fiddly at first, don't get me wrong, but you can reset this in like a minute, maybe a couple of minutes if you're being careful. Like I say, I have dropped the odd thing on the floor, and it's a bit of a bugger to find when you do that. But yeah, it's not that bad to set it up once you get the knack of it. Another thing that Pete mentions is a lid swapping routine, where you ask someone to swap two of the lids. Obviously they take the pens out in order to do that, and that way you can tell which lids have been swapped. Yeah, not the most powerful of routines really for £80, and also you could probably just do that quite simply with ungimmicked Sharpies without the pot. So in fact, I think Wayne Dobson teaches something very similar. So yeah, I mean, that is an idea that you can do with it, but you can do that without any of this. So the final idea that Pete has, I think, is one where you can replicate a dice routine using these. If you in some way have a crib and you give each of these a number of a dice, you can sort of replicate, sort of turn them into numbers, as it were, which is just I'm sure there's a logic to all of that, but it just seemed so convoluted that you couldn't help but think, why don't you use dice that have numbers on right from the start? Why pretend that these are numbers on a dice? I mean, essentially, let's be honest, you're buying this to do colour match, and it isn't very good for that. All the other routines, by and by, are probably more practical to do with this, but they're just not as strong as colour match. They're not an alternative to it. There is a brainstorming session at the end with Gian, and that's nice. It's nice to see them chatting and hearing the ideas flow. The problem is, because it's all so flawed, you're not going to be doing them. It's not, you know, it's all just, sadly, I can't help but feel this just doesn't work. If you're buying this to do colour match, I don't think you're going to do it. The big selling point of this is it doesn't use electronics. It is entirely mechanical, so it won't fail. I'm not sure that electronics are that prone to failure as people are making out. Are they that really something to be that scared of, that you shouldn't use them? The last 10 years, from Pro Mystic and the Anverdi stuff, it's all been electronic. People aren't complaining. People are performing with those. The colour match from Anverdi is incredibly versatile, far more versatile than this, and reliable, and you don't have any of the choreography issues, you don't have any of the peaking issues. This, although it's a third of the price, is not as good. I use one, I've developed one trick that's electronic, and I do honestly worry about it failing. I'm completely paranoid about it failing. I make sure everything is charged up. I make sure everything is connecting and talking to itself. But it has never actually let me down. And that is not something that's created specifically for the effect. That's me having sort of cobbled it together. It has never let me down. And I have another routine that if I can see that it's not working, I can go in and do another routine of the same length that hopefully is just as good. And that's all you've got to do. You've just got to, if you're worried about your electronics failing, if you've got a whole act, if you've got a 45-minute act that is all electronic, you might be in trouble. But really, just have a trick to hand, something that packs small, plays big. to hand, so that when your electronics isn't connected or not playing ball, you can do that instead. That ditto seems rather disappointing. Disappointing. And now we've got Cat's Paw. This came out quite a long time ago. As I was putting together my order with Ellusionist, I saw this and I remembered it, and we had this in at Prop Dog for a while, and it always sold out very, very quickly. It's a bit like the old Doll's Hand, Prop Dog's Mini Magician, Bob Farmer's hand as well, but it's a cat's paw. It's only, you know, it's under £10, and it's great. I'll show you, but probably you get you get the paw, and you get a little ball of wool as well, and a little ball of wool gives you a nice little routine that makes sense about the cat, and it's a really, really fun product. The tutorial is great. You know, unlike a lot of things where you just sort of, you know, they could just give you the paw and go and figure your own thing out. They give you a couple of routines, one with a coin and one with the ball of wool. And they teach it nice and clearly, a few basic sleights involved to do those routines to lead up to the cat's paw fake revelation of how it's done. Nice little project for under £10. You know, you've got a good few minutes of great, amusing magic. Yeah, a big fan of the cat's paw. And now we're at the end. Yes, not the end of the show, but Angelo Carbone's The End, the book test, which he's created. Again, I have to say, I've recently met Angelo and spent some very lovely time in the magic circle with him, and he did show me this book test. It uses the long word principle, I think was invented by UF Grant, obviously popularized in Mother of All Book Tests. The problem with Mother of All Book Tests is that they usually begin with a miss, and that is what Angelo wanted to remove. So basically, when you ask them for the you know, when you mention the letter and so on, you always get a hit, and that is, for me, pretty important. I'm not, you know, it doesn't make any sense to get it wrong and then start changing it. I know there is the Bint principle, which is quite good, but also in the same way flawed, and this gets around all of that. So you're always going to be hitting with your first question, which is good. The other very important thing about this book is that it looks completely legit. The detail of how good this book looks is incredible. So there you go. It's the right size. It's got a nice glossy cover. The pages are that sort of off-white color. The font's correct. It's got the ISBN code, the barcode. It's even got Penguin as the publisher, not Penguin Magic, obviously. And yeah, it looks good. It's got a nice back cover. It's cleverly constructed. It's got, you know, reviews on the back, including Thrilling by Richard and Judy Book Club. I'm not sure that Angelo's writing is quite good enough to make Richard and Judy's Book Club, but it does read and it does make sense, and that is possibly what Angelo teaches as the best way of learning the words. I would just actually read it for a little bit. If you read 8 pages or so, you'll come across all of the words that you need to know, and they'll just sort of implant themselves in your mind. You don't necessarily need to remember all of the words because of how the letters work. You can do it by phonics almost, I think it is. You can sort of sound the word out and you'll get it. So even if you don't know the word, per se, you can't remember what the right word is, you'll sound it out and it'll jog your memory. So yeah, you also get a little crib for it if you want to use a crib. You get 2, one for left-handed people, one for right-handed people, which is really useful. But like I say, the memory work really isn't that taxing. because you've kind of got it, you know, in your head. You can just go, okay, and then you can sort of roll sort of vowels around in your head, and you'll get the word. So it's easy to do. It's, you know, it is as powerful as any other book test. The book is I'm very impressed with how legit the book is. No one's going to question that at all.
This is what I want you to do. I want you to turn to any page. I think there's like over 300 pages. I want you to make sure you know I'm not looking. Okay, now think of any word on that page. Make it like a large word to make it more, a large word to make it very more complicated and more interesting.
They're all like trying to find a word, and I think they were changing their mind.
Because then they know it's not like there's only one big word on the
Exactly.
You got it?
Yeah, we got it.
All right, close the book so there's no way I could even know where you're thinking of that word. I want you to focus on the first letter of your word. No, I'm not getting the first letter. Can you move to the end of the word? I'm having a little trouble with the first. Move to the end of the letter. Think of the last letter. Ooh, I'm picking up an R. Is the last letter an R? No, what's the last letter? Oh, it's right before. It's right before. The R is right before the A. Okay.
There it is. You see what it is?
That's good.
That's not even the reveal.
Let's go back to the beginning of the word. Focus on that first letter. Focus on that first letter. Try to send it to me. Okay. I want you to not mouth, but just hear the word in your mind. Repeat it, or maybe see a picture. See it. Okay. I feel like there's some sort of light to this. I don't know why. It's almost blinding a little bit. Just keep saying the word over and over in your mind. I think I got it. I think I got it. This is what I got. I can't change my mind. Oh, you got it.
Yeah, if you're looking for a book test, if you haven't got a book test already, I'd highly recommend this one. If you've already got one and you're getting away with it and you're happy, perhaps this isn't going to replace it. This is only £80, $79.99, which, you know, in the world of book tests, it is cheap for sure. I mean, you know, and it fulfills all of the criteria that I like about a good book test, which is you can just simply hand this to someone and ask them to choose a word, and then you can divine that word with just, you know, a simple question that is a hit. Yeah, it is a really, really good book test if you're looking for one. Oh, and that does bring us to the end of the show, I'm afraid. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. If you do like this show, please subscribe to it. Please do share it. Tell your friends about it. And if you've got any comments, just put them down below and I will answer them, I promise. I am trying to make this as interactive as possible without it genuinely being live. So I do read all the comments. I do like it when I get a thumbs up. And any subscribers really will help the channel. But until next week, have a lovely weekend and I shall see you soon.